Okay, so we have another way to do polynomial division, and it is called synthetic, okay? Which you'll get the same answer as you get with long division. So what I have here, I have the example problem we did for example 2. If you notice, this should be similar to what you saw earlier. Okay, I have it worked out in long division, and what you guys should see is there are similarities between synthetic division and our long division. Now, let's get going. Which synthetic division at first is really weird, but I promise you it's a much faster way than long division, and you probably will like it more. Now you might not, but a lot of my students end up liking synthetic division much more than long division. The process is a little easier and it's much shorter. So these are the steps we're going to do, which is kind of weird at first. Okay, the first step, we're going to make a little box. Okay, I'm going to put a plus sign, and I'm going to draw a bar. That's always your first step. So we got our boxy, we got our plus sign, and we have our division line. Or not really division line, but we have a little bar down here. Sorry, not a division line. All right, you guys, so the first thing we do, we put the opposite of our divisor. If you see here, this is a -2, and here we put the opposite of this, which is a +2. Okay, so we put the opposite of that number in here. So the opposite of our divisor goes in a little boxy. Then what we're going to do, we're going to write the coefficients of all the terms of the dividend across the top. Okay, so we should have one for every exponent starting at x to the fourth, sorry. So our highest exponent is x to the fourth, so that's the first thing I'm going to write. Okay, we should have a coefficient for all the exponents starting with our highest exponent, and we should go down by 1 each time. So I have x to the fourth, 1 less than x to the fourth is x to the third, 1 less than x to the third is x squared, 1 less than x squared is x to the first, and 1 less than x to the first is x to the 0. Okay, so what is the coefficient of x to the first? Guess what? The coefficient of x to the fourth, sorry, I don't know why I keep saying x to the first. The coefficient of x to the fourth, well, I don't see a number in front of my x to the fourth. So secretly there is a 1 there. So I'm going to put a 1 for my x to the fourth. And again, these are coming from the dividend. So I'm looking at the dividend right now. This is what I'm looking at. Okay, so now I'm going to x to the third. I'm going to see what the coefficient is of x to the third. Holy hot dog, I don't see an x to the third. I see an x squared, but I don't see an x to the third. So like we did over here, you guys, we're going to be putting in a 0 placeholder for that x to the third spot. So I'm just going to put a 0 in its spot. Okay, now I go on to my x to the second term. My x to the second coefficient is -3, so I'm going to write that in its place. Okay, now I'm looking for an x to the first. I don't see one. What is going on? There's no x to the first. So like we did over here, you guys, since we didn't have an x to the first, I'm going to put a 0 in its place. So I'm going to put a 0. And then x to the 0, that's always the term without the x. So all that it is the term without the x. Okay, my term without the x is a -18. Okay, so that's the first step. We put the opposite of the divisor in the box, and we write the coefficients of the dividend across the top. And if we don't have one of our exponents when we start at our highest and go down by 1 each time, we put a 0 in its place. Okay, so you guys need to watch the process. Again, it's a little weird at first, but I promise it's much faster than all this, and you're going to see in just a moment. Okay, you always bring down the very first number and you write it below the bar. So I brought my 1 down. And then with all these, you guys, you're going to be multiplying it to the box. So I'm going to say 1 times 2 is 2. And I'm going to write it above the bar, diagonally in its spot, right above the bar. So I'm just going to shift over a spot and write it above the bar. Okay? Now I'm going to add down, that's why there's a plus sign. So we're adding down. 0 plus 2 is 2. Okay, every time you write something below the bar, you multiply it to the boxy. So we're going to multiply it to the boxy. 2 times 2 is 4, and I'm going to write that diagonally above the line in the next slide over. Okay, we add down. -3 plus 4 is a 1. I write it below the bar. Guess what, you guys? We multiply this to the boxy. So we're going to multiply this to the boxy. So 1 times 2 gives me a 2. So I'm going to write that bad boy above the bar. I'm going to add down. 0 plus 2 gives me a 2. Guess what, you guys? I'm going to multiply this number up to my boxy. So 2 times 2 is a 4. I'm going to slide it on over. And then I'm going to add down. So negative 18 plus 4 is negative 14. Okay, you guys, we only have one more step in this whole process. So I want you to compare these two. Okay, which I'm going to fill in the coefficients of the one that don't have coefficients. So secretly there's a 1 hiding out in front of the x to the third, and there's a 1 hiding out in front of the x. So if we look at these numbers, do they kind of look like these numbers? I got a 1, a 2, a 1, a 2, and a negative 14. Holy hot dog, you guys, do you see it? I'm going to tell you right now, this is not a coincidence. These are the answers to your final quotient. And guys, the last number is always our remainder. So this one, always box off because it's the remainder. The last number in synthetic division is always your remainder. So when we write this, you guys, what we're going to do, I'm going to write these down again. So I have a 1, a 2, a 1, a 2, and a negative 14. Okay, since we're dividing, we get smaller. Okay, I start with an x to the fourth, so after I divide, I better get a smaller exponent, right? So in our final answer, we always start with one exponent less than our highest exponent. Well, guess what, you guys? Our highest exponent is x to the fourth. So down here, I'm going to start with one less than that, which is x to the third. Okay, and I'm going to go down by 1 each time. So since this is a positive 2, it will be plus 1 less than x to the third is x squared. This is positive, so plus. My next exponent, x to the third, x squared. Then I got an x to the first. Positive 2, I'm going to add it. The last number is always the x to the 0 term, which is the term without the x. And then finally, this is my remainder, which goes over the divisor, which is x minus 2. And that's it, you guys. Do you guys see how that was so much shorter than long division? Okay, I know this process was probably a little weird. That's why I'm going to show you another one, and it probably will start to click after a while. So again, we're doing the same thing. We got the same exact answer, holy hot dog, but we just did it in a different process that took a lot less time. Okay, now, example 4 is very similar to example 3. So, if you think you understood example 3, go ahead and pause the video, work it out on your own, and fast forward to the end and see if you got it right. Alright guys, let's get going on example 4. So, again, the first step, we're going to have a little boxy. I'm going to put a plus sign and a bar. Next thing, I put the opposites of my divisor in the boxy. The opposite of positive 3 is negative 3, so I put the opposite in the boxy. Okay, so the highest exponent I see is x to the fourth. Okay, so I'm going to start with x to the fourth, and I go down by 1 each time. So x to the fourth, x to the third, x squared, x to the first, and my x to the 0, which again, that's the one without the variable. Okay, my w/o is without, so without the variable. Alright guys, let's get rocking. So, we're writing the coefficients from the dividend. So, my coefficient on x to the fourth is 3. My coefficient on x to the third is negative 6. My coefficient on x squared is a negative 9. My coefficient on x to the first, this one, even though I don't see an exponent, there secretly is a 1. So my coefficient is a 3 here, and then the one without the variable is negative 6. So this time, you guys, was a little different because we didn't have any missing exponents. So I did not have to put in a 0 placeholder. Now up here, we were missing exponents. We didn't have an x to the third. We didn't have an x to the first. So we had to put zeros in their slots. So do not forget about your 0 placeholders. But let's continue. Alright, so this is when the fun begins. So we always drop down that first number. Always. Then we multiply this number to the number in the box. So we're multiplying. Alright, 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. I'm going to slide it over here above the line. I'm going to add down. So negative 6 minus 9 is a negative 15. Alright, I'm going to multiply it to the box. Negative 15 times negative 3 is positive 45. Going to slide it over above the line. I'm going to add down. 45 minus 9 will give me a 36. Alright, and then I'm going to multiply to the box. And again, we are multiplying this number to our box. So 36 times 3, I'm going to have to do some side work because I do not know that off the top of my head. Guess what, you guys? It's going to be 108, but a positive times a negative is a negative. So it would be negative 108. Alright, guys, I'm going to add down 3 minus 108 is negative 105. Okay, let's do this again. I'm going to multiply this number to my box. So negative 105 times negative 3. Again, I'm going to have to do some scratch work because I don't know that off the top of my head. Alright. That will be 315. Let me double check again. 315. And a negative times a negative is a positive. So when I slide that bad boy up, it'll be positive 315. Alright, I'm going to add down 315 minus 6 will give me a 309. Alright, guys, and for our final answer, this is always our remainder. I like to box it off. Remainder. So for my final answer, I'm going to rewrite these numbers. These are the coefficients of my answer. So I have a 3, a negative 15, a positive 36, a negative 105, and this is my remainder, which I know will go over something, so I'm going to get it set up. Alright, guys, so when we write our answer, we start with 1 less than our highest exponent because, again, when we divide, we get smaller. So 1 less than x to the 4th is x to the 3rd. So that's what I'm going to start at for my final answer. So it'll be 3x to the 3rd minus, I go down by 1 exponent each time. So my next one will be x squared. Okay, this is a positive 36, so plus, my next highest exponent, I got 3, 2, this will be x to the 1st. Alright, and then my last number is the one without the variable, and then this is my remainder, which I throw that bad boy over my divisor. So 309 over x plus 3. And bam, you guys, this one is donezo. This is my final answer. Bam. Isn't synthetic division so much fun, you guys? So as of this point, you can determine if you like long division more or if you like synthetic. I really don't care which method you use. You get to pick. Okay, so whichever method makes more sense to you, that's what I want you to use. Now, we are going to do more funsies with synthetic so you can get more of a feel for it, but definitely after this lesson, it is up to you what you pick. Alright, guys, it was so much fun.